Mark Leibovich is the chief national correspondent for the New York Times Magazine. His new story out this morning looks at how Donald Trump could change his campaign strategy for the general election. Well, welcome back to the table.
Thanks, Charlie. Good to be here.
Are you surprised he hasn't changed it already? First question.
Well, he's been saying he's going to change it for several weeks now. He actually, as recently as this week, was telling congressional leaders in Washington that the pivot will come. I'm going to be different very, very soon. 180 degrees later, or 3 days later, he has done exactly the opposite.
And when he changes, what will it sound like and look like?
Odd at this point, because I think, look, I mean, he is so entrenched as an outrage monger at this point. He has gotten so much attention. A lot of it has been for things that people consider extreme, offensive, and I don't know how you undo that. It's much harder to undo this kind of persona than it is, you know, maybe finessing your views a little bit.
One of the lessons of the last presidential campaign from the Republican Party was that they were in a demographic death spiral, that they did so poorly among women and minorities that they had to change that. In fact, the gender gap was the largest in recorded history last election. And now, as Chip just reported, only 19% of women view Trump favorably. Can you win a general election with those numbers?
No. I mean, it'll be very, very difficult. And if you look at where the Republicans were after the last election, they were like Hispanic voters, women voters, younger voters. Trump especially, is underwater with all three categories.
And so how does this retweeting those pictures help his cause among women?
It beats the heck out of me. I honestly don't know. I mean, I think there was always a sense that there was a mad genius around Trump, that he knew what he was doing. This one, quite frankly, eludes me a little bit.
Even in your article, you say the Rottweiler is finally showing signs of being house-trained. You still think that's the case?
You know,
because it just seems it gets worse and worse and worse, Mark.
You know, I actually wrote those words 24 hours ago. So, like so much with the Trump candidacy, there's a pivot in perception. I just don't. I think that I would say that line, even though it's now on the New York Times website, is no longer operational, at least for this 24-hour news cycle.
But you also say that people will fall for the pivot, that the establishment will fall for. You still believe that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, look, there is a pundit language, there is a kind of unwritten rule that a nominee, when he is becoming or she is becoming more attuned to the general electorate, gets a bit of a break when it comes to finessing their views a little bit. I think it's going to be really hard for him.
He tried to pivot in meeting with the Washington Post editorial board by naming some of his foreign policy advisors. He had promised for months to do. Your newspaper today followed up to try to talk to some of those foreign policy advisors. It's not clear who they are, their qualifications, and what advice they're giving.
Right, and many of them have never talked to him or met him or anything. I mean, it looked like he was just producing a bunch of names to sort of counter criticism that he was not serious. I think he's got a ways to go on that, too.
I mean, how far is this going to go? Is nothing off limits?
Yeah.
We have said that we've been asking this for many, many weeks now. I don't know. I don't know where you go from here. I mean, I think people are asking, you know, is this good for Donald Trump? Is this good for Ted Cruz? First of all, I think Republicans lose either way. My viewpoint here, and I think a lot of people I've talked to today, is that this is not a good 24 hours for Donald Trump.
And you can argue the country loses because there's no serious discussion of important issues.
No, not even close. And, you know, look, this is one of our two major parties.
But after the bombing in Brussels, all the candidates weighed in with how they'd handle it if they were president. Who won there, do you think, in that conversation?
Well, look, I mean, I think what the Brussels bombing showed are two completely different styles. I mean, Hillary Clinton did a more traditional, kind of solemn, you know, restrained Hillary Clinton-like response, whereas Donald Trump was all emotion. He talked about waterboarding, border security. I mean, the very hot-button emotional issues that he's built a lot of his support on.
But isn't emotion playing well these days, Mark?
Emotion plays well in certain cases. I think it plays well with the Republican base. I think it helped him get the attention he wanted on the base he needed originally. But again, this is allegedly a outreach time.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mark Leibovich. Always good to see you.